Now that we know a little bit about what's happening behind the scenes, let's get started with Aurelia. The first thing I will do is JSPM install the Aurelia framework. This will bring down the core of the framework, everything I need to do data binding, display HTML templates, and it's the very basics of the framework. And I'm also going to JSPM install Aurelia Bootstrapper. Aurelia is designed with very small independent modules, so even the bootstrapping piece, which will launch my application, that's in a separate module that I install. And right now JSPM is bringing down all of the scripts that I need, placing them inside of JSPM packages. It's also going to update that config.js file so that the module loaders will be able to find these different pieces of Aurelia. And once I have the bootstrapper in place, what I'm going to do is no longer import my application module. Instead, I'm going to system.import the Aurelia bootstrapper. Because like many frameworks, the framework really takes control. It's going to manage the browser, manage history, manage routing, and at the appropriate point, it's going to call into my application. So I need the bootstrapper really to load my application. And the first thing the Aurelia bootstrapper will do, if I have given it no other information, is to try to load the first view model for the application. And it will do that by trying to load a module called app. And I already have an app.js. I just need to make this into a view model of the type that Aurelia would expect. So if you're not familiar with design patterns like model view, view model, it is one of those UI design patterns that provides a separation of concerns, much like model view controller will do. What Aurelia wants to do is find a view model for the application and to load that, and to also find a view for the application and load that too, and then tie the two together. But first I'm going to need to write the view model. This can be a simple JavaScript class. And in this version of JavaScript, a class can have a constructor. And in this constructor, I'm just going to initialize a message field to say, hello from Aurelia. And I will save this file. And again, if I'm going to use the Aurelia defaults, this has to be named app.js. That's what the bootstrapper will go looking for. And then it will go looking for a view that can present that view model. And by default, that view will have the same name, in other words, app, but in this case, it's going to be an HTML file. Now, when I create a new HTML file in Visual Studio, it likes to think I'm creating a full HTML file, but I'm really just creating a fragment. In fact, I'm creating an HTML template. And in this template, I want to display the message for my view model. I can do that with a simple binding expression here, $ open bracket, message, close bracket. So very simple binding expressions. And the last thing that I need to do is tell Aurelia where it's going to load that view into the DOM. And I can do that using an attribute and telling Aurelia, here's where to load the application view. It will put it into the body. So now my module loader will load up Aurelia Bootstrapper. Bootstrapper will go looking for the app module, which is now nested behind app.html. Aurelia will construct an instance of this view model. It will load the view, it will tie the two together, find this binding expression, and if we've done everything correctly, I should be able to come into the browser and refresh. I can see some Aurelia logging messages going by in the developer console, and here's our hello world from Aurelia. And what's nice is my application is just using plain JavaScript and some plain HTML with some special attributes and data binding expressions mixed in. Now, ultimately in this course, I want to show you how to do things like two-way data binding and how to make a call to the server to receive some data. And we'll be taking data in JSON format and exposing it from our view model and binding it into the view. But for right now, let me just show you a few other simple things that Aurelia can do. If your view model has an activate method, Aurelia will automatically call this. And we'll see later how we can use activate to retrieve some information about the environment that we're operating in, things like routing parameters that can influence the types of calls that we need to make to the web server to get information back. And let's say we want to give the user the ability to change this message. Eventually, I'll show you how to do two-way data binding with Aurelia, so we could provide an input text box here and allow the user to type in a new message. But for now, I'll show you something that we can do with a button. If I create a button that will show the text change message, the question is, how can my view model find out when the user clicks this button? I can do that by adding a click.trigger attribute. This is like a binding expression that tells Aurelia, when the user clicks this button, please invoke this method on the view model, change message. So now let's go back to app.js and add that method. I will say change message is a method that will change this.message to be goodbye. Let's save all these files, refresh the browser, and I see hello from Aurelia, and I see goodbye. And this hello world example, while it's simple, really represents the essence of Aurelia. I'm going to be able to write my application using the new features of JavaScript, features like classes and modules, which means I don't have to use strange syntax inside of my JS files to make sure that variables and other things that I'm defining escape into the global scope. Here I'm simply exporting a simple class called app, and Aurelia is going to pick that up, construct it, call the activate method, and then bind data and behavior between my view, which is responsible for presenting information, and leave this nice simple view model class back here with simple JavaScript. It's responsible for logic and fetching data and reacting to an external stimulus like a button click. And you'll notice I don't have any crazy framework Aurelia code inside of my application view model. It's just plain simple JavaScript. It would be easy for me to import this into a unit test and write a test, for example, to ensure that changed message actually changed the message. And all I needed to do here was follow the Aurelia conventions. Once I import the bootstrapper and tell Aurelia where to grab control of the DOM, it will go out and load my view model and view pair and start the application running.